Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Welcome to Finding Certainty. It's our favorite day of the week. We get to meet with interesting guests and entrepreneurs and influencers all across the country and around the world. Today, we're meeting with a new friend of mine, but really an extraordinary businessman, philanthropist, and I would say an influencer in a very real sense, Mr. Matt Butkus. Thanks for being here, Matt. Appreciate you being on the
Thanks
call.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you all might recognize that last name, Butkus. Matt is the second son of number 51, the Hall of Fame middle linebacker from Chicago, the Chicago Bears, Dick Butkus. Looking forward to talking a little bit about your dad and his legacy, Matt, but we're going to talk a lot more about what you're doing today and how you are continuing the legacy for your family, because as much as we love your dad and everyone looks to him as a leader in the league, you are continuing his work, and you're most definitely not just living in his shadow, but definitely feeling his footprints. So looking forward to talking about that. I think you're a great example, my friend, of someone who is creating certainty in your business, in the community, and helping bless the lives of people all over the country. So hats off to you.
Thank you.
So we always start out the show going a little bit down memory lane. And obviously, I mean, you're Dick Butkus' son, right? And you get a lot of attention about that. I mean, he's one of the most feared linebackers of all time. Had several nicknames. I'm curious to know which was your favorite, or which was maybe the best known. I'm the Enforcer, the Robot of Destruction, right? I've heard the Monster of Midway, and the list goes on. Is there one that he was best known for, or that you maybe remember more?
I might throw you a loop for one. I might throw you a loop. It was probably Dad.
Yeah, well, that was the nickname that you called him.
Well, right.
How about all the fans? I mean, there's Chicago fans are diehard, right?
I like to think he was the Monster of the Midway, I think,
Yeah.
What's another? The Mayhem one, the Maestro of Mayhem.
Right.
The Enforcer. Yeah, I like the Monster of the Midway, because we got together a few times with Urlacher and Singletary, and they signed some helmets, the Monsters of the Midway. So,
yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, he's really credited with defining the middle linebacker position. I mean, he's still viewed as the gold standard by which other middle linebackers are measured. And in fact, you guys went on to create the Butkus Award, which recognizes America's, American football's most outstanding linebackers across the country.
Yeah.
When you started the Butkus Award, it was focused on just one area, right? Was it high school, college, or NFL?
It was just college in the beginning.
Yeah, and
then when we started our Play Clean program, which is speaking to young boys and girls, high schoolers, I asked Dad, I said, maybe we should bring in a high school and a pro. So a lot of the excitement, to be honest with you, is around the high school and college. They're kids still. They're real exciting. The pro, I mean, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you have to deal with, like trying to get to them through their agents and stuff like that, like to give them the award. But it's really fun. My dad remembers the Sun Times coming out to his house when he won the Sun Times Player of the Year in high school. So they came out and wanted to do it the same way. So we find out who won it, and then I kind of sneak on the campus and I kind of surprised the kid. So he's there in his own element with his coaches, with his family, with his teammates. So, we pride ourselves on that rather than, having them come to a dinner in a different city when they're doing finals. So
right.
I think that's pretty cool, and we're going to obviously talk to Mom after my dad passed, and still can't believe I'm saying that. But, just wanted to carry it on. Like, the kids like it. It does the community and charitable works. So, yeah, we're going to carry it on. We're going to I was closer to my dad they lived in California. My immediate family's in California. Mm-hmm. I'm here in Chicago. So we're not moving it back, but it was in Chicago. It was in LA, Palm Springs.
Right.
But we're moving it back to Chicago, Champaign to be exact.
Nice.
So we got the Big Ten Network to produce the show, so there'll be a show, and then the University of Illinois is going to host it. So it's almost like coming back home because that's where he started. There's a statue there.
That's right.
I changed the old trophy to look like the statue. So it's one last change to the trophy is now looks like the statue. So that's cool. And then I put the high school number on the high school, and it's kind of like the high school uniform. Mm-hmm. The college trophy is a little bit bigger than, small, medium, large, 3 different uniforms. So the college one has the U of L, the U on the helmet, the little shoehorn thing.
Yeah,
and then, so
Illinois Fighting Illinois, right?
You got it. Go Illini. So with me graduating and playing at Southern Cal, it'll be interesting this year. Them playing in the Big Ten, mm-hmm. And next year USC goes to Illinois. So that'll be got to be down there for that. That'll be interesting.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because you played for the Trojans. That's no small accomplishment, Matt.
Right.
They're one of the best teams in the nation. They're always a powerhouse, right? That's not.
We won the '90 Rose Bowl. We beat Bo Schembechler in his last game.
Yeah,
played sparingly, but got to get in there, rotate a lot, but we had Mark Carrier, the Bears. We had Junior Seau. Of the Chargers, obviously, and
right.
Tim Ryan and for the Bears, and
it's great.
Actually, Marinovich was our quarterback. So we had everybody on there. I was still young, but most of those guys went pro.
Oh, yeah.
Curtis Conway, Willie McGinnis, Tony Baselli was my roommate who just went into the Hall 2 years ago. So, yeah, we were pretty stacked back then.
Yeah, you had some ringers, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I before we get too far, I just wanted to give a shout out. I'm sorry for your loss. It's not even been a year since your dad passed away, October 5th.
Yeah.
It's probably hard to believe, right? Somebody like Dad, who was such a force to be reckoned with, such an influencer in the industry, in the league. In so many ways, which we'll talk about. But you think he's indestructible, right?
Yeah, invincible.
Invincible, right?
There's a story about 20 years ago, leads into some of the things that we do. He was writing a script with Murphy Dunn. Murphy Dunn was like the piano player in the Blues Brothers.
Right.
So kind of a comedian, and he was out, I think, in Westlake or Thousand Oaks. And my dad always wanted to, when they worked, like movers and stuff like that, he always thought that was could be like a sitcom, like a 30-minute show.
Right.
So they're writing that, and Murph wasn't feeling too well, and he's like, I'm going to call this hospital, my hospital friends, and I'm going to go get a scan, see what's going on. And, do you want to go with me to my dad? He's like, I'll go with, and so the guy that set it up was from the south side of Chicago, and he's also an Illini. So he was like, Murphy was friends with him, and he's like, can I come in for a scan? And I'd like to bring a friend of mine, Dick Butkus, and, they kind of got excited and said, if he thinks it's worthwhile, will he, maybe do a spot for us, a marketing ad or a radio.
Right.
Oh, they go. And my dad, I think, was kind of like, I'm going to have my shield up a little bit from like a candid camera, because Murph was a comedian. So, like, we're going to this doctor's office. Okay. So Murph goes in, he goes in first and he comes out 10 minutes later and he's got a little water, pneumonia on his lungs or something like that. And then my dad went in, and it's usually, 10 to 15 minutes. It's not invasive, it's you lay there and you go in. It's not like an MRI. Then you come out and you sit with the cardiologist and he goes over it with you. So it's like 15, 20, 30 minutes. They're like calling in the cardiologist. Cardiologist was like, when was your last stress test? And my dad's like, my physician still smokes cigarettes, like turn your head and cough. So
every game was a stress test, right, Matt?
Yeah. So they said, like, when we're going to put this up, like the X-ray, like the white, the white blotches are calcium, right? So they put it on there and they flicked it on. It kind of looked like the Milky Way. So bad. So it's supposed to be clear. So they're like, let's do a stress test. And my dad failed it. He thought he passed it. Some ventricle wasn't closing all the way or something. So they're like, well, we're going to sign this paperwork. We're going to do an angio. Mm-hmm. And, the paperwork is obviously if they see something bigger that, they can take care of it while they're in there. So I think my dad was still waiting for the candid camera, and the doctor's white as a sheet, like this guy. So anyway, I went home and started packing my bag, and my mom, they would have had their 61st this past July. So it's a long time.
It is.
So she's like, kind of, what are you doing? Like it's supposed to be like an overnight thing or whatever. And my dad was always intuitive. He knew, like, playing wise too. He told me he used to watch the film and be like, well, these guys are tough. Not that we're got to play harder, but it's going to be tough, or we're going to win this game, or where the plays were going that day and stuff. So he's like, I don't feel I'm not, it's not in and out. So he went in, within 24 hours, he had a 5-way bypass, 90, 99, 98, blockage, 97. So yeah, no
idea.
No nothing. And the doctor said he had one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. So, so that's, we woke up, and then, so that center is the Butkus Cardiac and Wellness Center in Orange. And nice. We scan, and our goal was to get a facility and a scanning machine like that in every NFL city. And we've finally have done that. So anybody could go get a scan. We just need to get some sponsorship maybe from the teams to help pay for the the fans to get scanned for fans. So,
Nice.
and then that
Let me interject.
obviously led to more, more times with my dad because I worked with him by then.
Right.
Later, hand in hand. So it was a godsend, but this wasn't. October wasn't. I didn't see that coming because he wasn't like ill. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the truth is, the fact is that hundreds of thousands of people every year die from heart disease.
Yeah, it's number one.
It's about 700,000, right? It's like 10 full football stadiums. And now your Butkus Foundation, you've got the Butkus Takes Heart initiative. It's really just urging these cardiovascular assessments. I mean, his life was saved from a routine screening. He had no symptoms. Talk about having certainty.
It was really, really funny, and I could talk to about his mentality. He was nervous about the test, so he's like, he had a like a Winnebago kind of American Eagle, like 30 foot.
Yeah.
So he decided he grabbed his rubber suit, went to Death Valley with his golf clubs, checked into the Furnace Inn, and he's like, I'm going to hike, and then I'm going to come back and wait for the hottest part of the day and put on the rubber suit and go play golf. And it was crazy story. That's what he did to get ready for his test, So
lucky he didn't go over dead then.
Yeah, maybe he did over. Yeah. So, but we've scanned thousands of people already and saved a lot of lives. So it's just, if you have the signs, you should go get scanned. And if you have a great score, at least you have a baseline of where you're at. So,
well, and to your point, it's not just something that you should do if you're having symptoms. You should do it if you're 40 or 50 years old. Right?
I mean, if you're having symptoms, do it. I'm talking about not symptoms, but if you have family history, if you're overweight, smoking, like those not signs like, but
if you're having heart pain, you should probably go to the ER, not just go get your
sure. If it runs in your family, you should. Well,
obviously on this show we talk about certainty. I mean, I own a company named Certainty Management, another named Certainty Global, and Certainty Holdings, and it's all about creating certainty in our clients' lives. And your foundation is helping do that with promoting the cardiovascular screenings. You've got Play Clean, Butkus Foundation's I Play Clean initiative, which is, as you said, is encouraging high school athletes to get more serious about avoiding performance-enhancing drugs. Right? They
said that I think the biggest users now are 16-year-old girls.
That's incredible.
Believe it or not. Well, it's not. I think it's it's not really for sports. It's the magazine, the cut look, social or whatever you call it, body consciousness or whatever. So
that's crazy.
But yes, people are. NFLers are still getting caught for it and getting suspended, and like a lot of people don't know. I think it's like your third positive is your positive for the public. You know what I mean? So it's not your first test, right? So it's like I think your third that if you keep getting in trouble, they fine you and suspend you. So,
and then
I still do it, but
I'm impressed that you guys started this national initiative to try to change that attitude, right? Especially with kids, right? I mean,
sure, yeah. With adults. My dad did my dad did a talk in front of doctors in San Francisco, and they brought up Barry Bonds, and my dad just speaks his mind and tells it like it is. And he's in this big auditorium of doctors, and he's like, I don't give an F about Barry Bonds. He's an adult, grown man at 36 or whatever. It's, when you're younger and your body's not developed fully and your brain's not developed fully and you're taking this stuff, could have a 60-year-old heart at 30.
Right.
And there's other things that happen that breaks down in your body that's might attribute to using, right? But it's maybe they call it this or they call it that, but that stuff. And then how you can get it, and they like getting it on the internet, and parents sometimes give their kids it and trying to get a scholarship. And, we've heard a lot of crazy stories. We've heard a lot of great stories too about a single mother was with a son that was going to go to college, and they wanted him to get heavier or bulk up or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And he didn't do it. So we've got a lot of encouraging mail about, helping all the way around, with the getting people to get scanned and catching something. Like, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago that my dad, when they had the Hall of Fame golf tournament here, I think they have a Hall of Fame golf tournament in Chicago just for the alumni or whatever. So my dad, we took them all to the scanning. We got a bus and loaded up like 12 Hall of Famers and took them to our scanning facility here in Chicago. And there was 2 red flags from that.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I'm not can't name who the names are, but yeah, and they talked to our cardiologist, Dr. Larry Santora, and good guy there at Orange St. Joe's Hospital, and got in touch with him because he reads the scans, and then that's what we do, and then tells them to, you better talk to your cardiologist or talk to your primary physician. So,
wow.
Yeah. So that's on the Butkus Award trophy. It's, it's written on there, and it's, you're a leader now and recognizable leader, and you have to follow in the tradition of the American tradition of giving back. So, my dad did, they said he did more, off the field than on. It was just a big heart, you know what I mean? If circling back to, starting with my dad, some history, and a lot of people think how he played is that's how he was at home. But he, he was just the opposite. He went to all our games, and
that was one question I had. And then before we go there, your dad didn't use steroids. It was really the pre-steroid era, right, when he played. But he was 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time first team All Pro, 3-time second team, 8 times Pro Bowl. I mean, he's had his number retired from the Illinois and also from the Bears. I mean, those goes on. And so he's proof of somebody. What I love about your dad is he was a great example in so many ways of how someone should live their life. They should live it clean. They should take care of themselves, get screened and so forth. They should throw everything they have into their work. I mean, these are all principles that create certainty in our lives, right?
Right.
I mean, he went on to do more with after his career, to your point,
Sure.
than he did even as a player. He played for 8 years, but he's still considered the gold standard, as I said, as a linebacker. That's why the award exists. I do think it's really cool that you made it high school, college, and NFL, but it's a question I had. You probably get this question a lot. What was it like growing up as Dick Butkus' son? I mean, that's a pretty big shadow he cast. Right?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was, it was disadvantages and disadvantages, of course, but no, heck of a guy, heck of a dad, his sense of humor. And maybe in the beginning, he's with the public or approaching him and stuff like that. He's always had, his guard up a little bit because you never know people and what they want and why they like you and stuff like that.
What do they want?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Matt, I'm going to cut you off for a minute because we've got to go to break. But when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about his dad. And then Dick is your dad. I mean, that's Dick Butkus is your dad. That's hard to imagine, but we're going to go to break real quick. And when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. I want to get into more of what you're doing yourself because you're doing some great things as well.
Follow Voice America at Facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
Certainty Management can help create more certainty in your life with our deep discount health insurance options, even for 1099s, part-time employees, volunteers, and more. Pay less to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your team. Call 888-684-3122 for a free quote today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, TEAM, like Mary.com.
Have you become a member yet? Sign up now to become a member of Voice America. It's always free and easy. Plus, you get to take advantage of some great member benefits. Get unlimited access to millions of hours of on-demand content across all of our channels. Keep track of your favorite episodes, shows, and hosts in your own customizable library. Find out what shows you might be interested in based on your favorites. Plus, you get insider access with our newsletter. Membership gives you more. Sign up at voiceamerica.com and click register at the top right.
If you're a nonprofit in need of funding, we can help. Certainty Management is a cost reduction firm that also helps churches, schools, sports teams, and other nonprofits raise unlimited zero-cost funding. Best of all, you don't have to sell anything or ask for donations. Call 888-684-3122 to learn more today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, TEAM, like Mary.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. We're visiting with Matt Butkus. He's the second son of number 51, Dick Butkus. And, we were just talking previously, just prior to the break, about what it's like to grow up as Dick Butkus' son. But during the break, we were talking about the fact that one of Dick's distinguishing characteristics, and I think it defines you too, Matt, from what I know about you. It's a good definition of how you're following in his footsteps and continuing on that legacy. But Dick tackled everything he did. I mean, he's renowned as a tackler. I created, dozens of fumbles and he had several interceptions. And he went on to be in the Hall of Fame, have his number retired. But it was because he tackled like nobody else, right? Standard for tackling.
Well, yeah,
he just do that in football.
Like growing up, I mean, not to say anything bad about his family members, but he was the youngest of 9, and he would grow up and he he knew at a young age that he wanted to play football. So he saw, like, running around with the, girls maybe doing this and not passing your classes in high school, or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the opposite of what other people are doing not to get there. So, but, pushing cars and running in the park and dodging trees. And so he knew at a young age, that's what he wanted to do. And then he did it, and knock on wood, and, that he wasn't injured. You know what I mean? Because we've talked about that a couple times. Like, what if I went to the Jets, or what if I went to the Broncos? Would life, how would life be different? Or if I had a really bad injury in college at Illinois, what would my path be?
Mm-hmm.
But he was he tackled football, and everything was football, film, and that's what he did. He didn't, like one of his teammates, he doesn't go to the bar and pound his chest, and he's not out. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't a saint. I get it. Come on, he wasn't a saint, because I've heard some stories. So, but he was all focused, and like the players now are like grab ass in and tapping each other and switching jerseys at the end of the game.
Uh-huh.
He's like, that's my opponent during the year. This is my livelihood. They could end my career. So the rah-rah stuff he wasn't into, like today.
Right. So you said something interesting. I think it's an important point to make, that he did the opposite of what everyone else was doing. And we've all heard the phrase that if you want to live like no one else, you've got to do things. If you eventually want to live like no one else, you want to achieve what no one else does, you have to live like no one else. You have to do the things that others aren't doing, whether that's getting up early and practicing, whether it's avoiding drugs or not screwing around, getting in trouble with the law. This applies in a lot of areas of our life. If we want to have a better marriage, we got to do things that other people aren't doing in their marriage, right? If you want to be successful in business, you want to do things that others aren't doing in business. Now, I love the fact, and if we can keep moving in this direction, I love the fact that you grew up with your dad. I'm sure he was a tough parent, right?
Sure, yeah.
I assume he was strict, and he pushed you, and I mean, you went on to play for the USC Trojans.
No, I mean, he wasn't like, he wasn't the overbearing, like forceful, like the little league fathers that are fighting at the game. Right. You know what I mean? He wasn't, if I asked for advice or help, he wouldn't, like overly volunteer it. He would, my mom and him would sit up in the corner of the stands. They weren't the leaders of the glee club parents.
Right.
He was working for NFL Today. If you remember back with Brent Musburger and Irv Cross, he replaced, I think, the Greek after the Greek had some comments. So he would go to my high school game Friday night, take the red eye, from the red eye from LAX to New York every Friday night to do the NFL Today. So, and I went to college. He's like told, all of us kids, I have an older sister and then a brother. And then I'm the youngest of three. And, college was like probably the best time of your life. Go and try, go to, see everything on campus, try different sports growing up. Right. When you're there, go watch other teams play and stuff like that. So my sister went to Notre Dame, which is a rival of mine. My brother went to St. Mary's in Moraga. And I was at USC. So
So how did that go over, Matt?
Huh?
How did that go over with you at USC and her at Notre Dame? I mean, they are diehard rivals, right?
Well, it's a friendly rival. And then she had two boys, and one of the boys went and graduated from UCLA. So that's both.
There you go. They're hitting you from both sides.
Like both, and then her other son's going to Cal. So I'm getting it from all sides, but I'm not, we have a proud tradition too. So
that's great.
We'll see how we do. So, but like you said, he tackled everything, was serious. So when he had this, he had the bad numbers from the scan and the 5-way, he really tackled that and got his numbers down and in line and ate what he had to eat and, really got down. And like you said, he was in a lot of films and commercials and did that the same way. He didn't just, be like what is it? Alex Karras on Blazing Saddles. I mean, he really went to class and acting class. So he took everything real serious. Pretty serious guy, but he was a jokester and a prankster, and a
lot of fun.
He was a lot of fun. So we miss him dearly and every day, but carrying on and asking some of the former winners to help me carry the torch, like the DeMarcus Ware and Luke Kuechly's of the world. Brian Bosworth just called, said, "Hey, haven't talked in a long time, would love to help you and to do whatever you need to do." And so
that's great.
Yeah.
So, your dad was in some of my very favorite movies. I mean, especially the football ones, right? The Longest Yard.
Sure.
Very Roughness. I mean, Brian's Song even, right? I mean, it seems that he
was on Any Given Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
I think he found out. I remember a story about that when he found out. Wasn't it the famous director, right? Who I'm trying to remember his name, but he's like, it's a football movie and this guy's directing. So I think he called him. Oliver Stone.
Yep.
So he called him, and Oliver's like, "Yeah, I'll put you in it." So they put him in it. He's like, "I think I should be in this."
That's
cool.
He
really wanted to work with Oliver Stone. He's a whipty-doo director, so they threw him in there.
It's like working for Martin Scorsese or somebody like that,
Sure. Yeah.
So growing up with your dad as an icon, right? As a legend and forced to be reckoned with. A lot of kids that grew up with celebrity parents and so forth, they are impacted negatively, right? They grew up being entitled. They grew up being arrogant or spoiled or lazy or, et cetera, et cetera. And you haven't done any of that, right? You've taken your dad's mantle and just carried on, or the torch, and just carried it on. I mean, what you're doing with the Butkus Foundation, the Butkus Award, that's impacting thousands and thousands of lives.
Yeah.
I know your dad, he probably made more money from movies and his Miller commercials than he even did from football. But you're also a businessman, Matt. You're following in your dad's footsteps as an entrepreneur, and you're branching out in things that he didn't even do. Right. And I just wanted to say, man, because you are forging your own path, right?
Yeah. I remember he was more like, not that it's just opinion, not that it's bad, but not like tunnel vision. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then playing. And then at 33, right, what do you love second best? He would always say. So he got into acting. So it was like acting, like this. But I'm all over the place because I always used to talk to him. He's like, how do you do it? All the different things, it's thinking it's kind of like you're not going to be good or what's the saying? Like the jack of all trades, the master of nothing.
Right. Try to do too many things. You don't do any of them well, right?
Right. Like because I'm all over the place and doing this, and I was going to do a restaurant, and he's like, how are you going to keep up doing the award? And I'm like, I can do it. I can still drive to LSU or USC or Notre Dame and give out the trophy. And,
sure.
You have good people that you trust that, beneath you. Or not beneath you, but, handling stuff.
Yeah.
So I created.
Matt, you seem to me like much more of a multitasker. You've had a much broader view. His was more tunnel vision and more focused. Nothing wrong with that either. There's different styles.
Right. Sure.
But as I'd love to have you talk a little bit about Team Butkus and what you're doing there. I think this is the main point I wanted to make, though. Obviously, our show is called Finding Certainty, and there's 2 or 3 principles I see in your life, also in your dad's life, but in your life that are indicative of creating certainty in our lives. One of those is follow those good examples that you have, embrace them, embrace those talents, those lessons, those experiences, and make them, and don't forget them, right? Don't forget the past. Certainly don't forget our forebears, our examples, our mentors, and your dad was obviously a great mentor for you. And we need to value those examples, I believe, to become who we want to be. Secondly, though, we've got to be willing to go beyond their shadow and go beyond those examples and think and expand on them, right? That's the goal we all have of our children, that they're better than us, right? That they accomplish more than we do.
Right.
And that they exceed our expectations, right? That's
yeah.
For everything,
I want to say
right?
My dad was, I think was very humble, right? So like with the name, and when people would go like to him, he could have had, his wine, his cigars, his
own cologne, right?
That restaurant, all that. And he would just decline, he'd just say no to all of them. I don't know why. Well, I kind of know why, but it's like, so I would have to, sometimes I'd have to talk him into, like when we created the foundation, like this is kind of what made, what I'd like to do and help people. And, if we could use your name, or you and your name to help, that's why we did it. So there was a lot of no's to a lot of good things. Mm-hmm. And now that he's not with us, I've always wanted to do like a Butkus football camp, and some more of ideas are coming to fruition just because they weren't allowed to come out. But, he's just like, he didn't want his name on a restaurant.
Right. I think it's interesting because I just did a monologue first of the month. Every first Friday of every month, instead of having a guest on, I do a monologue, and I speak for the entire hour about a certain topic. And I'm going through the alphabet. So this month was H, and I talked about humility. I talked about how H is for humility. And the point I made, one of the main points I made, was that humility doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're tentative or shy or anything like that. You can be powerful and be humble at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And so, your dad, he didn't want the recognition. He didn't want people looking at him as he thought he was all that in a bag of chips, right? And so, obviously, he had earned people's respect. But it's interesting. Yeah. He didn't want to put his name in lights, right? And is that a good way to put it?
You said that because I signing in. If you remember, I had Matt. Now you have Now you have my last name there.
I put it in there for you.
But just like that,
you're a chip off the old block, man.
Same thing. When you're walking down the street, I'm not, I've gotten like introduced as, Dick Butkus' son without even saying a name. You know what I mean? And it's like, then I'll say like, yeah, my name's Matt. My name's Matt. So, but it comes with the territory, of course. So,
well, to my point before, I talked about the 3 characters.
Oh yeah, we're on number 3.
Yeah, the first is to honor your history, right? Honor the examples, the mentors, the lessons. 2 is to not be afraid to go beyond them. Don't get stuck in the past, and that's where you're going beyond. You've taken the Butkus Award to high school, college, and NFL instead of just college. You're expanding the foundation to additional work. You've started your own business, Butkus.com. And that takes me to the third principle is that not only should you be willing to step beyond the examples and the lessons you've learned, but I believe you also have to be willing to do more than just make income, do more than just focus on yourself. You've got to focus outward, right? Your dad was a great example of that. And you're a great example of paying it forward, making a difference, not just doing good, not just doing business. That's a big part of what we do, right? We raise funding for nonprofits, which you and I are talking about. So anyway, let me ask you this question before we run out of time here. We're nearing the end of the show. Tell us about Butkus.com and why you started it. What is the intent or the objective?
Well, yeah, the Team Butkus, that was good. Cause I had several heart-to-hearts with my dad, and he's like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, with the foundation. Mm-hmm. Who knows, something might happen. It's a 501c3, so it's right.
Designed to pay the bill, right?
Yeah. And so I, in the beginning when we had some big sponsors, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And and then went through some lean years with the foundation and stuff like that. But so I started Team Butkus. It's, like my business for profit here in Chicago. It's doing events. Like we do a tailgate with the Billy Goat, the world famous Billy Goat on Navy Pier.
Your tailgate parties are legendary.
So world famous. Tailgate there, and then we take a water taxi over to the game. So that we do that, I'd like to do it. Move into sometimes baseball, or have a girls softball tournament, or just kind of like in a little event company. So. If you're ever in Chicago at a home Bears game, you need something to do before the game, come on out.
I would do that.
That's what Butkus is.
So, I grew up watching the Bears, the Fridge, your dad. I mean, these, the Refrigerator Perry. I mean, these guys were icons, right?
I was the ball boy in 85. Yeah. I was the ball boy for the Super Bowl in 85.
That's pretty cool.
So, I knew, Walter and Matt Suey and the offensive linemen, and those guys, man, had a hell of a year.
Yes,
Too bad they couldn't. Yeah.
They came so close, didn't they? So
they should have won it the next year too, but things started, Mike and Buddy, the defense obviously loved Buddy, but at least they got one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yep. Hopefully another one coming here soon. Where they're going to be, right? They're talking about moving. I mean, not out of Chicago, just off the lakefront. So we'll see what happens.
So let me ask you this lesson, Matt. Growing up with your dad and taking what he started, this legacy with the foundation, the award, and so forth. We've got just about 3 minutes left here, but what is the one lesson you feel like you learned from your dad that you try to carry on in your life? If you had to pick one, and we talk about him tackling everything, but is there a lesson that stands out for you?
Well, I think I would, whether it's a lesson, I think it's, you've heard the saying, you got to remember where you came from,
right?
You know, and then he always used to say, like, he took the star pill, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say, you know, being grounded, you know, family and friends, and take care of them, and you don't lie, cheat, steal. You know, he was a devout Catholic. You know, treat others like you want to be treated.
Right.
And it seems like it gets harder and harder and harder to do that in today's world. You know, live the right way and not take shortcuts, and you know what I mean? So,
well, and you too.
It would be that. It would be, you know, don't change, you know, never change who you are, and remember, you know, you're just a blue collar, hardworking Lithuanian family that shared their things. And back then, you know, my grandpa, you know, it's kind of like a barter. You know, he was an electrician, then you maybe had a roofer.
Right.
So you roofed for me and I electric for you, you know? So
well, I'm going to end on this. We're out of time, but
yeah,
you said exactly what I thought you would say, right? Remember those principles that make you who you are, and don't forget them, and don't trade on them. Don't make exceptions. Don't make excuses, right? Don't betray who you are, who you know you are supposed to be, and who you can be, right?
Oh, believe me, it wasn't all smooth. Right? It wasn't all smooth sailing for me. You know, if I went off course, I'd get that look, and you know that look. So you'd get right back on course, believe me.
Right, the dad of mayhem, right, or the monster.
Oh yeah.
Hey, well, we've been visiting with Matt Butkus. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We could talk for another hour, I'm sure. I'd love to hear more stories, and we can do that offline. But real quick, how do they find your company?
Well, it's the butkusfoundation.org. You could go there. You could go to the Butkus Award. We just came out with our college watch list. That's kind of fun. We picked 51 guys. We have a great selection committee. And then teambutkus.com is Team Butkus.
All right.
Go there and grab a T-shirt or something. Help us out.
All right. Well, Matt, great having you on the show. I really enjoyed it, and we'll continue to talk. I'd love to be able to help you raise funds for your organization. What you guys are doing is really important. So
you got it.
Thanks for being on. Thanks for being on Finding Certainty. If you're listening, have a great weekend. There's certainty out there to be had. We can help. You can do it. We have your backs. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Finding Certainty. We hope you've gained some more insight into how to create more certainty in your own business or nonprofit. Join us next week for another taste of the Certainty Experience. Until then, we wish you greater certainty in all that you do.